Oftentimes, the biggest levers that we have in operations management are in the design phase. It is in the design phase where a large majority of the production costs of a new product are actually determined. So far in this module we have primarily focused on designing a clever process to deal with the effects of variety. In this session we'll think about how a clever product design can reduce the negative effects that variety has on process performance. We'll introduce the concepts of modularity, platforms, and delayed differentiation. An automotive assembly line is a fascinating place to visit. Join me in a walk through a plant. As we go from the beginning of the line to the end of the line, where the cars are going through a last round of quality inspection before they are made ready for shipment, I want you to pay careful attention to the amount of variety that you will see in the process. Here, in the upstream at the beginning of the line, there exists relatively little variety. All these bodies of cars still look very much the same. There's no paint on it, there's no dashboard, no electronics, no color, nothing. Variety increases once we go through the coloring of the vehicle. Once the paint job is done, cars come out with multiple colors. Then there are engines that are installed. Some of them have big engines, some of the cars have small engines. Further along, we'll introduce audio systems and other electronics, different interiors, and towards the end of the process, we have a very large amount of variety. So, as we observed, the variety increases as the journey through the production process unfolded. This is not just specific to the car. We could have made the same observation in a Subway restaurant. At the beginning of the process, I just have 2 or 3 different types of bread. At the end of the line, at the cashier, I have hundreds and hundreds of different potential flavors, recipes, and options that customers have chosen. Now let me offer you the choice between 2 different process designs. In both cases, we start with a limited amount of variety, and then at the end of the process, in both cases, we provide the same options. For example, different colors of our flow unit. However, in the first processor layout, the way the process unfolds is that the process is common across all flow units, across all colors till the very end, and only at the end will I configure the product into the many different product variants. In the second option, in contrast, I make the decision at the upfront. Right at the first step, I'll add the color to the process, and I'll then separate the process flows for each of the different variants. Which of the 2 processes would you prefer? Most of us would intuitively prefer the first option. We see a form of scale economies in the process because here, look at the first step following the kind of process beginning here. Everything I'm producing is standardized to one variant, whereas here it is spread over multiple different units of demand. In other words, here I'm suffering from this problem of demand fragmentation that we discussed in an earlier session. Or put differently, I'm benefiting from the effect of pooling here at this first resource. Pooling is a form of scale economies, and the variability thus that we're going to experience here at this resource will be lower compared to the variability that we're going to encounter at each of these individual process steps. The strategy of the first option that we just discussed is often referred to as delayed differentiation. Delayed differentiation means simply that we delay, or often called, we speak of postpone, we delay or postpone the decision of which product variant a particular flow unit will end up to until the very last moment in the process. The classic textbook example of delayed differentiation comes from the apparel industry. Benetton is a company that sells t-shirts, polo shirts in many different colors. What color is hot at what moment of time is really hard to predict, and so Benetton faces a lot of demand uncertainty. Now imagine two production processes. In the first production process, we take the different colors apparel and we send them through the production process of making a shirt. The alternative, and that's a great insight that Bennett came up with, is we're producing one generic shirt color